Welcome back to the Empty Spots Blood Pressure Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel Harrison, and today we're diving into something I think a lot of us wonder about.
Okay.
When is the best time to check our blood pressure? Like, it seems simple enough,
Right.
but then you start thinking about it, and
Yeah.
it's like, wait a minute, is there actually a right time or a wrong time?
Mm-hmm.
So, to help us sort through all of this, we've got an expert with us, Dr. Olivia Harper, a cardiologist who I think is amazing at explaining
Oh.
even the most complicated medical stuff in a way that makes sense.
Well, thank you for having me. I
Of course.
appreciate it.
First of all, let's just get this out of the way right away.
Yeah.
There is no one magic time that's the best for everybody to check their blood pressure, right?
Yeah. You're absolutely right. It would be amazing if it was that simple.
Right.
But unfortunately, our bodies are so unique and different
Mhm.
that there are so many factors that can impact your blood pressure readings.
Okay, so what are some of those factors? Like age, race, gender? Does weight have anything to do with it?
Yeah, all of those things. Absolutely.
Okay.
So starting with age, as we get older, our blood vessels don't act the way they used to. They're not as elastic anymore.
I see.
And so that can actually cause your blood pressure to be a little higher because it has
okay.
to work harder. It's like,
Oh, interesting.
you
Plumbing.
yeah, like old pipes
Exactly.
versus, nice new flexible
no.
pipes.
Exactly. And then race can play a factor too.
Mm-hmm.
Certain racial groups tend to have higher blood pressure
Yeah.
than others, and that's really just genetic.
Uh-huh.
So, for example, African Americans tend to have higher blood pressure readings
Oh, interesting.
compared to other racial groups.
Okay, so it's not like a guaranteed thing, but just something to be aware of potentially.
Exactly.
Okay. What about differences between men and women?
Yeah. So men tend to have higher blood pressure readings compared to women.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I would have thought it would be the other way around. Yeah, a lot of people think that, but it actually could be because women's hearts beat a little bit slower than men's.
Huh.
And that could play a role.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep.
And then there's weight, which I think people kind of have an idea of how that impacts blood pressure, but maybe not the specific.
Yeah, so carrying extra weight puts more pressure on your entire system.
Mhm.
And so your heart has to work harder
Oh,
to pump the blood through your body.
so it's like
And that can lead to higher blood pressure readings.
if the heart's working harder, it's going to exactly
I
move
say
the blood
that.
harder.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if you're trying to manage your blood pressure, weight management is super important.
Okay. So we've talked about age, race, gender, weight. Given all these individual variations,
Right.
is there even a general guideline for when most people should check their blood pressure?
Yeah, so even though there is no one size fits all because everybody is different,
Right.
checking your blood pressure at least twice a day is a good place to start.
Okay.
So we recommend once in the morning
Yes.
and once in the evening,
Makes sense.
just to get a good...
Catch those variations
Exactly.
throughout the day. Now, are there any situations where checking more frequently would be beneficial? Are there any red flags that people should watch out for?
Yeah, for sure. If you are experiencing anxiety or if you have a high blood pressure reading that doesn't go away after a couple of hours,
Okay.
then you should definitely reach out to your doctor.
Like more than 2 hours?
Yes.
Okay.
And of course, if you're pregnant, you should be monitoring your blood pressure regularly
Yeah.
because there are a lot of changes going on in your body.
There are a lot of hormonal shifts and stuff too.
Exactly.
Okay, so obstetricians will usually check blood pressure throughout those appointments,
Yes.
at every visit.
Now, for people who already know that they have hypertension,
Yeah.
is there a specific time that you recommend for them to check?
Yeah, so if you have hypertension, we typically recommend that you check it first thing in the morning
Before you eat or take any medication.
before you do anything.
Yeah. And then again in the evening.
Okay,
And what's really important here is consistency.
gotcha.
Try to take it at the same time each day under similar conditions.
So it's like don't take it in the morning
Yeah.
after you've exercised.
Exactly.
Take it before you
Exactly.
do anything. Okay,
Yep.
so we've talked about all those individual things that can impact blood pressure, like age and weight.
Yes.
But do our daily habits have
Yeah.
anything to do with when we should check our blood pressure? Does food or drink impact it?
Yes, definitely. You want to avoid things that could temporarily affect your blood pressure reading.
Okay.
So, no food,
Okay.
no coffee, smoking, or alcohol for at least 30 minutes
Okay.
before you check.
So if I just down an espresso or something like that, I
Yeah.
should wait a little bit before I check on my blood pressure.
Exactly.
Okay. Are there any other kind of surprising things that
Yeah.
can throw things off?
Yeah, so this one might surprise you,
Okay.
but even having a full bladder can make your blood pressure go up a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So make sure you go to the bathroom.
You learn something new every day.
I know.
Okay, so go to the bathroom before you check your blood pressure.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's all about setting ourselves up to get the most accurate reading possible. Now let's talk about the actual process,
Okay.
the tools and techniques for actually measuring blood pressure. What do we need to know about that?
Okay, so the most common tool that you'll encounter is called an automated sphygmomanometer.
Okay, I have to admit I've used these before,
Yeah.
and I sometimes feel like I'm fumbling around with it a little bit. Is there a secret
Yeah.
to getting an accurate reading?
Yeah, for sure. The first thing is making sure you have the correct cuff size for your arm.
Oh,
So if it's too loose or too tight, that can really mess up the results.
okay, so cuff size check.
Yep. And then also make sure that you're in a good position when you're taking your blood pressure. So sit up straight with your back supported
Okay.
and your feet flat on the floor. And then rest your arm on a table
Gotcha.
at about heart level.
So no slouching?
Yeah, no slouching and no crossing your legs
Okay.
because we want to minimize any extra pressure that could affect the reading.
So basically be as relaxed as possible.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then you're going to follow the instructions on your device.
Okay.
Most of them have a start button, and the cuff will inflate and then slowly deflate on its own.
And then I get those two numbers on the display.
Exactly.
Now, what do those numbers actually mean?
Yeah. So the top number is your systolic pressure,
Okay.
and that's the pressure in your arteries when your heart beats.
Okay.
And then the bottom number is your diastolic pressure,
Okay.
and that's the pressure in your arteries when your heart is resting between beats.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's measuring two different.
Exactly. Two different phases.
Okay. So once I have that reading, am I good to go?
Not quite.
Oh, okay.
For the most accurate reading, we recommend taking 2 or 3 readings,
Oh, okay.
about a minute apart.
So don't just go with the first number.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you can just take the average.
So multiple readings help smooth out any weird variations and stuff.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
And it just gives you a more accurate picture of what's going on.
So blood pressure, this is just one part
Yeah.
of our overall health picture.
Absolutely. It's
Okay.
important.
There's other stuff too.
It's one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
You also want to think about diet and exercise, stress management, getting enough sleep,
Right.
all of those things.
It's not just about the numbers.
Exactly.
It's about taking care of ourselves in general.
Exactly.
Okay. And if we're ever really worried about blood pressure, or we notice like sudden changes or drastic changes, then it's a good idea to reach out to our doctor
Absolutely.
and get their advice. Speaking of experts,
Yeah.
I feel like I've learned so much from you already today, just in this short amount of time, that we've been talking about blood pressure monitoring.
That's great. I love sharing this information.
Now, before we wrap up,
Yeah.
is there anything else that our listeners should keep in mind
Yes.
about blood pressure?
Yes.
Any final pearls of wisdom?
Yes. One thing I want to emphasize is that even though there are general guidelines, you should also try to personalize your approach.
Okay.
What works for one person might not work for another.
Right.
So just pay attention to your body, be consistent with your monitoring, and if you have any questions, just ask your doctor.
I love that. Find what works for you.
Exactly.
And don't be afraid to reach out to your healthcare provider if you have any questions.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
They're there to help.
Awesome. Okay, so we're talking about how the tools and the techniques
Yes.
for actually measuring blood pressure.
Right.
What do we need to know?
Okay, so the most common tool that people use to measure their blood pressure at home is called an automated sphygmomanometer.
Okay. Now, I have to admit, I have used one of these before. And sometimes I feel like I'm fumbling around with it a little bit. Like, is there a secret to getting an accurate reading? Like, what should we be looking out for?
Yeah, so the first thing is to make sure that you have the correct cuff size.
Okay.
So if it's too loose or too tight, that can really mess with the reading.
Okay, so cuff size is important.
Very important. And
Yeah.
then the second thing is to make sure that you're in a good position when you're taking your blood pressure.
Okay, how so?
So you want to sit up straight with your back supported,
Okay.
your feet flat on the floor,
Uh-huh.
and rest your arm on a table at about heart level.
Okay, so no slouching, no crossing your legs,
Exactly.
all that stuff.
Yeah, because we want to minimize any extra pressure that can affect the reading.
So basically be as relaxed as possible.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. So then what?
So then you're going to follow the instructions on your device.
Okay.
Most of them have a start button. You push that, and then the cuff will inflate and then slowly deflate.
Okay.
And then it'll give you 2 numbers.
Right. And those are my systolic and diastolic pressures, but like remind me again what those actually represent.
Yeah. So the top number, the systolic, that's the pressure in your arteries when your heart beats.
Okay.
And then the diastolic, the bottom number, that's the pressure in your arteries when your heart is at rest between beats.
Oh, okay. So it's measuring
Two separate, 2 different phases of your heartbeat.
Okay.
Yeah.
So once I have my reading, am I good to go? Like, am I done?
Not quite.
Oh, there's more.
Yeah. For the most accurate reading, we actually recommend taking 2 or 3 readings about a minute apart.
Okay.
And then taking the average.
So I shouldn't just rely on the first number that pops up.
Right. Taking multiple readings can just help smooth out any like variations and give you a more accurate overall measurement.
Okay.
Yeah.
So blood pressure, this is obviously very important, but it's just one part of the puzzle when it comes to our overall health.
Absolutely. You know, blood pressure monitoring is important, but you also want to be thinking about other things like your diet, your exercise, stress management, sleep, all of that.
So it's not just about the numbers. It's about taking care of ourselves in general.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if we're ever really worried about our blood pressure or notice like sudden changes, really drastic changes, then it's always a good idea to reach out to our doctor.
Absolutely. Always talk to your doctor.
To get their input.
They can help you interpret the readings and make sure that you're on the right plan.
Speaking of experts.
Yes.
I feel like I've learned so much from you already just in this short amount of time.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
That we've been talking about blood pressure monitoring.
Good. I'm glad you're finding it helpful.
It's been really helpful. So before we wrap up.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you want our listeners to keep in mind when it comes to blood pressure? Any final pearls of wisdom?
Yeah, I think it's important to emphasize that even though there are general guidelines, you should also try to personalize your approach.
Okay.
So what works for one person might not work for another.
Right.
So just pay attention to your own body.
Okay.
Be consistent with your monitoring. And if you have any questions, talk to your doctor.
I love that. Find what works best for you.
Exactly.
And don't be afraid to reach out to your doctor if you have any questions.
Definitely. Your doctor is there to help you.
Awesome. That's a great point. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
Right.
We all have to figure out what works for us.
Exactly.
All right, let's do a quick recap of what we've talked about today.
Okay.
When it comes to blood pressure monitoring, we debunked that myth that there's like one best time for everybody to check their blood pressure. We talked about all those individual factors that can impact it.
Yes.
Like our age, our race, our gender, our weight, and even our daily habits.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that you need to be using the right tools and techniques.
Make sure you've got the right cuff size.
Yes.
That you're sitting properly.
Yes.
All that good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so the key takeaways are consistency is super important. Accurate measurement is a must. And it's always a good idea to chat with your doctor.
Yes, definitely.
If you have any questions or concerns. Olivia, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, you're welcome.
I feel like I've learned a ton.
Good, I'm glad.
About blood pressure monitoring. And to all of our listeners out there, I hope you found this deep dive as insightful as I did.
I hope so too.
Now that you know more about the when, the why, and the how of checking your blood pressure, what adjustments can you make to your routine to make sure that you are monitoring yours as effectively as possible? If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to the TheEMTSpot's Blood Pressure Podcast so you don't miss any of our future deep dives.
Yes, and don't forget to like,
comment, and share this episode with your friends and family.
Definitely.
We always love hearing from you guys. I'm Samuel Harrison.
And I'm Olivia Harper.
It's signing off from the TheEMTSpot's Blood Pressure Podcast.